going to be countless opportunities in your career where you're going to need to present from slides. So far, we've already talked about how you can create your presentation so that it helps the viewer understand and it gives you a good prompt to add in the important details. You don't need to put every single little thing on the slide. All it's there to do is to trigger your mind to say exactly what you need to say. A good slides presentation is not a Word document copy and pasted into PowerPoint. In fact, it's the opposite. It's an abstraction of what you're trying to present. In a slides presentation, you still want to convey the emotion, the body language, and connect with your audience. Don't be stuck behind your laptop. There are enough Bluetooth remotes out in the world that you can be walking around or at least sitting in a different location, be comfortable, have room to move around, and not be stuck behind a screen, peering up, peering down at your audience. Tip number 2. Slide presentations can still be organized around the dynamic focus structure. You still need a contract with your listener, and you can still organize it around 3 basic concepts that you explain or go into depth. And most importantly, slide presentations need to tell a story. They are not endless documents that flow on forever. They use text, images, charts, all of these beautiful interactive elements to tell a story in a way that a document or simply talking may not be able to do. So take advantage of that. Tell a story with your slide presentation. To illustrate these principles, I've dug up a presentation I did several years ago about the gas station of the future. Even though this presentation may not be perfect, it does illustrate many of the concepts that we've talked about, and I think it could serve as a good example for what a good design presentation can look like. What is the gas station of the future? What does it look like? How does it impact businesses and consumers, architects, communities? In order to find the answer to this question, we need to go back. Starting in 1905, the first gas station in the United States opened in St. Louis, Missouri. This was a very small affair that could only serve a couple of people every day. Since then, we have grown to over 150,000 gas stations in the United States. And even this number is lower than where it was in the 1980s and 90s. The reason it's lower is simply because the market has changed. In other words, the way we fill up is changing dramatically. People are buying more efficient cars, and there are more electric cars on the road today than there ever have been. How can existing gas stations approach this new future? How can they adapt to the electric vehicle revolution? How can they move forward in a way that makes sense from a business perspective, from a consumer perspective, and, well, from a ecological perspective and a design perspective? In order to answer this, we did a little bit of a case study with a local gas station that we thought might serve as a good example for what this gas station of the future could look like. It's located in Loma Linda, California, which is a town very close to here. It's near to some freeways, it's near to a hospital, and its good central location makes it a popular, or we'll say at least profitable business. Our first case study explored how we could use that car repair shop and replace it with additional charging areas. As we know, electric cars charge slower than a regular car can fill up. So in order to handle that additional time, we may need additional spots for people to park and get refilled. Concept 2 really explored the idea of expanding the existing building, the car repair shop, into a much more useful space that could have maybe another shop right next to it. Again, providing something for the customers who are charging their car to do while they're waiting. When we studied these first 2 concepts, one thing that really hit us is that this gas station is successful because of its location. How can we take advantage of that location to maybe sell more convenience items which, by the way, are actually the cash cow of gas stations right now. Gas stations make very little money off of actual gas. What they want you to do is go inside and buy a drink. So how could we accomplish that? How could we obviously convert it to something that's a little bit more green? And while we're doing both of those things, how can we make it into something that's a little bit better to look at? Maybe it's not a full park and waterfall like this image, but how can we get to a point where it's just a little bit of a nicer place? Concept number 3 expanded on these ideas to introduce more retail space and even a little courtyard. We also realized that we were needing to leave some area for all the batteries. While this third concept moved us in the right direction, it wasn't necessarily enough to bring it all home. We needed to focus more on what was available to our unique location, specifically in Southern California. The things that immediately jumped to mind were food trucks. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of food truck small businesses in this area. What if we could integrate them more completely and more intentionally into our design? Likewise, California has great weather. So how could we create this outdoor area that had integrated seating and was, in general, a nice place to sit while you waited for your charging car? This brings us to the final concept. We've expanded the retail area. We've created a nice outdoor space that's shaded, has some nature in it. And we've also created an intentional space for food trucks. After we had these initial concepts, we created what we thought could be a great gas station of the future. It would be self-sustaining with solar panels on the roofs. You could have food trucks and other local businesses serve customers who are waiting on their charging car. Maybe the gas station of the future is an untapped opportunity to create these micro, local community spaces where the experience is green and more pleasant. Let's bring this back to our first question. How can existing gas stations adapt to the coming electric vehicle revolution? What is the future of the gas station? We believe the solution is to use their prime locations in city centers around the world as convenient activity nodes for local business, social activities, food, and of course, charging their electric car. I think that went pretty well. It's obviously been a long time since I've delivered that presentation, but I tried to hook the listener in with the question. I kept the slides simple. I had lots of images with very few text, and I didn't even necessarily read all the text, but I tried to explain the insights and the behind the scenes thinking for each of the slides and images that it showed. I think that's an important element here. Slides, they're going to tell part of the story, but it's up to you to fill in the gaps, and you might as well fill it in with things that are interesting and that are important to what is currently shown. Don't try to get ahead of yourself. Simply explain what is on the screen. Explain that part of the story while it's being shown. I think that's probably one of the greatest strengths of a slides presentation. They keep the presenter on track. So let them do their job and tell the story that you want to tell.